Hi, my name is Simon Hedley, known to my clients and partners as a strategic alchemist and an ultimate connector. I'm a chartered accountant who brings together and bridges the worlds of business philosophy, finance, marketing, optimization, ontology, and so much more. Always focused on one thing, the simple idea that can make the difference to people and projects so we can tip the scales in their favor and get them complete. Pause, Stop, Reset is all about the three little words that can make the difference. They have for me and my clients, and I hope they will for you too. During the show, you'll get to learn about my guests' real-life experiences and the insights and lessons they've learned as they've navigated the resets in their personal and business lives, which you'll be able to leverage yourself. So let's start the show. Hello, I'm Simon Hedley, and welcome to this episode of Pause, Stop, Reset. Today I'm joined by the one and only Matt McWilliams, and Matt is a really interesting guy. I got to meet him a few years ago, almost by chance, and it turns out he, like me, has been one of those people behind many of the people you have heard about. Now, he's been the go-to affiliate manager recently for many of the top development companies and much more besides. He's a really interesting guy, a great, strong track record in especially online business, and he's so passionate about helping entrepreneurs and his family. And recently, he's just published a new book called Turn Your Passion into Profits. So today, I'm looking forward to catching up with him. Matt, without further ado, welcome to Pause, Stop, Reset. How are you doing?
Simon, so good to be here, buddy. Thanks for having me.
I can't wait, man. It's been a year and a half in the planning, as we say, right? So let's start at the beginning. Many people listening in may not have heard of you. You have been like a bit behind the scenes, though you are really out there as well. So who are you and what are you focused on today?
Yeah, so I've been in the online business world for, this will be my 21st year. It was just crazy. In fact, kind of the genesis story was about this time. It was over the Christmas holiday, 2001 into 2002. I was working with my dad. We were running these golf schools, and we'd have 3, 4, 5 students come on a weekend, paying $2,000 to $2,500 each. As a 22-year-old at the time, splitting it 50-50 with my dad, I'd make $4,000 or $5,000 in a weekend, Simon, which is, that's insane when you're that age, right? And of course, like a typical 22-year-old man, I was an idiot. So I spent it on a bunch of stupid stuff because I paid my mom $250 a month in rent. So I had a bunch of extra money and didn't really know what to do with it all. But I was like, Dad, what if we got 10 people to come? We'd make twice as much money. And he was like, well, how do we do that? I'm like, well, there's this website called Google. And if you put in, keywords, then they send you sales. That's kind of how I told them, So at the time we could get leads, sales for 10 cents a click. We could get 10 cents a click. We convert 1 out of 200 people into a $2,000 sale. So we're making $2,000 spending 20. And sure enough, we started having, 8 to 10 people at these golf schools, every weekend, 30 weekends a year. You can do the math on that. I'm making, between $8,000 and $10,000 in a weekend times 30 weekends, plus some other revenue from that. And it was a crazy start because I realized the power of online marketing and what it could do at such a young age. I fell in love with marketing, but I hated golf. And so fast forward a few years, or I hated teaching golf. I loved playing golf at the time. Fast forward a few years later, and I had a different company. I was working with a good friend of mine because my dad had freed me. Some people call it fired. I call it freed. And, he freed me because he knew I hated the teaching part, but I loved the marketing side. And the company I was working with that we had started, we were in a kind of a crisis mode. We couldn't make payroll in 2 weeks, and we had to figure it out because we were either going to have to lay a bunch of people off, or we needed to, figure out how the heck we're going to survive. And basically we were doing the equivalent of trying to buy a house by scrounging through your couch for spare change. We're like, well, we can make $50 here and $25 here and $200 here. And finally I said, well, guys, I've heard of this. There's these people called affiliates. And they're like, what the heck are those? I'm like, well, they're like people who market your product, but you don't pay them until a sale is made. And for a company that had spent, thousands and thousands of dollars on marketing that didn't work, that you had to pay up front. By this time, the clicks weren't 10 cents because we were in a completely different industry and the market had evolved. We had to pay up front and all that stuff. This was a pretty cool thing. Like, there are people that you don't pay till a sale is made. And for us, even more, you didn't pay them until like a month and a half later. Wow, this is the best of both worlds. We can, make money without spending it, at least in the short term. So where do we find these affiliate people? Well, I don't know, guys, but I'll figure it out. And it was Memorial Day weekend, the big cookout weekend here in the States, Simon, where, you're supposed to spend all weekend eating barbecue, drinking beer, and enjoying the sun and not going into the office. But I spent the whole weekend, 18 hours a day in the office trying to figure out how to start an affiliate program. And we did. We started it, and we made just enough money over the next 2 weeks to make payroll, made just enough money a few months later to actually pay ourselves a couple, $1,000. And then fast forward about 18 months after we started it, we were doing over $1 million a month from our affiliate program. And so I've spent the last 17 years, Simon, 18 years now, running affiliate programs, worked with some of the top entrepreneurs, businesses, Adidas, Shutterfly, Michael Hyatt, Lewis Howes, Brian Tracy, Ryan Levesque, the list kind of goes on and on, just working with them. Also some startups, some small businesses, coaching their teams and helping them to grow from nothing to something and do kind of the same thing I did. But instead of taking 18 months of trial and error, they can do it in a matter of, a few months knowing what the heck they're doing. And so that's been my mission for the last 17, 18 years. It's just been to kind of help people start and grow and scale an online business.
I love it. And you get a sense of Matt's passion and his energy for this stuff, right? And the variety of the clients over the years. And obviously the show here is Pause Dot Reset, right? So when you've been looking back on it, you touched on your dad freeing you from your golf training. What have been the biggest shifts and resets you've had to been through on that journey?
One of the ones that I look back on was in that kind of those early stages, about 5-6 months in, to what I just talked about, starting our first affiliate program. So it was right around Thanksgiving in the US, 2005. So about 6 months in, we had grown from nothing to doing about $100,000 to $150,000 a month. But great, and I'm not saying pat myself on the back, but it really was amazing that we had grown that fast, even to that point, to be doing into low six figures every month. And then we got the horrifying news that our number one competitor had been bought by a publicly traded company. And of course, we went into full panic mode because number one, they could spend more now. They could afford to basically outspend us for the next year, whether it be on affiliate commissions or paid advertising. They could outspend us for a year. They could lose $10 million over the next year to basically bankrupt us, and it wouldn't be a big deal. We were the up and coming company. There weren't that many companies in the niche at the time, about 5 to 7. And we were kind of the upstart that was the biggest threat to them because we had a reputation of, taking care of our affiliates, and we had a really good reputation with, we sold insurance leads to agents. We had a really good, reputation with our agents. So we were getting some of their agents. So we were their biggest threat. And now they had all the money in the world, basically. And I spent about 2-3 days just absolutely, me and my business partners, we were depressed. And I wish I could tell you, Simon, that, that 2 days later, I got up and I said, by gosh, we're going to do it. And, screw them. We're going to still succeed. And actually, I was single at the time. I was working 7 days a week, 14, 15 hours a day. And I left the office in the middle of the day on Friday, went home. I'm sitting there Saturday afternoon. I was watching the Wake Forest Navy football game on TV. I watched college football for 7 hours, 8 hours, late afternoon. I'd woke up late. I was sitting there eating way too much food and just junk food. And I was depressed. I didn't go into the office. I didn't say, you know what, that's okay. We're going to take advantage of this. We're going to succeed just in spite of our biggest competitor being acquired by a publicly traded company and all those things. I actually just moped around for about 2 or 3 days. And this Saturday afternoon, I don't know how else to say this, Simon, I'll just tell the story as it is. I'm watching college football and I went to the bathroom and I was sitting on the toilet. And for the first time in 3 days, my mind quieted down. And I wasn't intentionally trying to think of a solution to the problem. It just hit me like a ton of bricks, just out of left field. It came to me. I think that's what happens sometimes when we do pause and we reset. And sometimes it takes a shower. Sometimes it takes a walk. Sometimes it takes sitting on the toilet, for 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah. And I was sitting there and I went, oh my gosh, what if we reached out to every one of their affiliates? What if we reached out to every one of their affiliates and basically said the message of, instead of looking at this as, hey, our biggest competitor got bought by a publicly traded company. Now they have all the money in the world. What if we said they have a reputation for treating their affiliates like a number, not a person? That will never happen with us. We will treat you like a person. As a matter of fact, here's my personal cell phone number. Call me anytime. Would you be interested in being an affiliate with us? Fast forward 3 months later, we were doing over $500,000 a month. We didn't steal many of their big affiliates. Their big affiliates, the more corporate ones, they didn't care if they were treated like a number. But a bunch of their mid to small affiliates, their $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, $500 a month, upwards of $5,000, $6,000 a month affiliates, they came over to us. They left that company because they knew that they had a personal affiliate manager who could get on the phone with them and strategize. They knew that even the simple act of they signed their emails, the affiliate team at such and such company. I signed my affiliate or my emails, Matt McWilliams. They had my cell phone number. We would text. I wished them happy birthday. All those little things. I knew their spouse's name. I knew their kids' names. I knew what school they went to. All those things that back in 2005, by the way, were not exactly easy things to find out. You couldn't just go to Facebook and find out. You had to ask. You had to do the magic ask. You had to actually ask them. You had to do some research. You had to do some digging to find out if you didn't ask them. And I knew those things. And that's what helped us grow. And it was one of those moments where I didn't intentionally pause, but in a way that pause, shifted things.
Yeah, often I think that's sort of the stop. You had that moment of, right, we can't keep doing what we're doing. We have to find a new way through. And I know you fairly well, and if you're listening and may able to guess about this, of these three of pausing, like taking some time out, stopping stuff completely and listening to new activities, which is the hardest for you and why do you think that is? I have a sense which one it'll be, but I'm just curious out of those three, which one's the hardest?
By nature, it's pause.
Yep. That was my guess.
Yeah. I mean, I have ADD and I have I don't brag about it. And I don't, it just is what it is. It's like saying, if you're missing a toe, when you're missing a toe, you don't go around bragging about it, but you also don't go around commiserating about it. I'm the same way with ADD. I have it. I manage it. I take advantage of it in many ways. And I also know that, just like anything, any personality trait or whatever, there are positives and negatives, and you have to take advantage of what you can and use what you can and mitigate the downsides. So for me, my two favorite words in the English language are what's next. Like, boom, we just completed this. Cool. Like, what's next? Like, we got to set this up. Let's do this. Let's do this. Celebrating is not really in my nature. It's not. I have to understand that not everybody's like me. So with my team, we celebrate. I celebrate intentionally. I put it in my calendar. I had it in my calendar today, Simon. So we had a big push, as you know, for pre-orders of the book, and we hit our goals. We literally crossed our goal with about an hour left in the pre-order campaign. 6 weeks of a 6-week campaign, 42 days. And it came down to the final hour and 15 minutes, 1/300th of the campaign, right? And we did it. Well, for me, I woke up this morning and my nature was like, okay, cool. Now we got to do the rest of the week. Like we have stuff we got to do the rest of the week to be able to hit our goals for the first week. And then, okay, start next Monday. Then we have to set up the evergreen stuff. But I actually had a calendar reminder that I had put into my calendar almost 6 weeks ago that said, celebrate with team. That's not in my nature. So I have to manage that. And I manage things like that by putting them in a calendar, So for me, pausing, because I'm most comfortable. There's nothing wrong with this. This is the thing. If you're not most comfortable, go, and you need time to rejuvenate more, then take the time to rejuvenate. I need less, just personally. That's just the way that I'm wired. And so it's the most difficult for me, but I get around that by being intentional. So we put in years ago as a company practice. We started doing it around my wife and I's birthdays are June 29th and June 30th. And then we have this little thing over here. You guys have probably heard of it in England, Simon. We call it Independence Day. You guys probably call it Colonial Treason Day, where, we celebrate on July 4th when we got independence from our tyrannical English overlords, right? and so there's this period of time there that just makes sense for us to take time off from work. I don't want to work on my wife's birthday and she doesn't want to work on mine. And we work together. We're business partners. And then, 4 days later, we're going to blow up a bunch of fireworks and eat a bunch of hot dogs and go swimming. So why work then? And why work the 3 days in between there? Right. Because who wants to take a few days off from work, then work for 3 days, then take another couple of days off? So we set it as a practice every year from about June 25th to July 7th or so, depending upon how the days fall. We shut down as a company. Our entire team takes off. Everybody. We have one guy, skeleton crew, the tech guy who checks in every morning and every afternoon just to make sure that the systems are still operating. That's it. It takes him 90 seconds per time. Outside of him, everybody's completely off, autoresponders on email. And then we do the same thing at the end of the year into the beginning of the year. So the last, usually 2-3 days before Christmas through, 2, 3, 4 days into the new year, we take off. Like 4 weeks a year, our company's completely shut down. If it wasn't for that, dude, I would work 365 days a year. That's just how I'm wired. So we put those into place. Like our company is shut down. I can't do work. I am completely shut off. I put my laptop down. I turn it off. I delete apps off my phone. Oh, how do you not check Slack? How do you not check email? How do you not check? You delete them off your phone.
Wow.
And then when I'm like, oh, I want to check into Slack, it's like, I'm not going to go to the app store, download the app. Yeah, just forget it. I even go so far. This is one when I do the 2 weeks. I don't do this like on weekends, but on the 2 week ones, I actually go in and disconnect the Wi-Fi. I disconnect the Wi-Fi that my phone's on. So our Netflix and all that's on a different Wi-Fi. So my phone now runs really slow on it's not terribly slow, but it's certainly not something you want to be trying to download large files. So now it's like, I'm not going to, downloading an app takes 3 minutes. So I'm not even going to go through the effort of doing it. So for me, it's all about intentionality when I have to pause, because that's the only way I can force myself to do it.
No, I love it. And that physical changing the environment is so vital. I'm just curious because you mentioned sort of, I know for you, your family is a big thing, right? And I also get, whether you're owning it, you're a crazy work ethic. I love that about you because I couldn't keep up. It's like just go, go, go. And with what you do, there's always another campaign, there's another client doing a launch. How do you navigate that with your family?
So there's a couple of things. I mean, number one, it's about rules, because this is what works for me. This doesn't, I guarantee you half the people listening, this is not the way to do it. For me, it's rules. Like our daughter has soccer practice at 6:00 tonight. We have to leave by 5:40 so she can get there and warm up. So I have to be done working by 5:25 to make sure I have plenty of time to go upstairs, make sure she's got her shin guards on. And, if there's anything, I need time to go up and grab some water and stuff like that. So I have to be done by 5:25. And I don't want to be rushed. So it's really 5:20, because I do have a rule, because I work from home and I have for 12 years now, 11, 12 years now. My rule is I always take at least a 5-minute buffer between working and being a parent. So the simplest way for me to do it, because I don't have a commute, is I just go upstairs and I usually sit on the floor in darkness and meditate for 5 minutes. That's it. I just do some box breathing for 5 minutes. And then it's just a reset, right? So that's a rule. I have to be done today by 5:20. Now, tomorrow we don't have anything in the evening. So how do I get around that? Well, we schedule something. All right, we're going to go out to dinner, or we're going to do a family movie night, and it starts at 6:45. Well, I've got to make dinner. So that means I have to be done by 5:50. So I have those hard stops. The other thing is, like, when we get into a busy season, like with the book launch, I was working a crazy schedule, because not only am I running our agency and running our team and leading our content, and I'm the face of the company, so I create all the content and all those things, and that's my regular job. I was doing 4 or 5 interviews a day, most days of the week for 6-7 weeks. And so the only way for me to do that was to work a little bit extra. So what I did was I communicated in advance, and I set the expectations. I talked to the family, and hey guys, for the next 3 weeks, daddy's going to be really busy. And what that means is I'm going to miss a couple of soccer practices. I'm not missing your games, because that is a hard and fast rule, but I'm not going to be at some of your practices. Even our sons, when I coach the team, but there's a few other coaches, I'm like, you guys need to run them in December. I need you guys to run the practices. I'm just not going to be there. and I talk to them in advance. I talk to them when we have like a big finale, a cart close day, a final day of a launch, and I'm on my phone at 9:00 at night, texting an affiliate while we're trying to do our bedtime routine. I tell them in advance, hey guys, just so you know, this is not normal. That, other than a few nights out of the year, I don't do this. I'm not on my phone, but tonight I'm going to be on my phone some while we're doing our bedtime routine. And I'm sorry, it won't be this way the rest of, the month, but tonight it is. And so it sets that expectation. My wife knows that we're probably, in the 2-3 weeks leading up to the book launch, we're not going to go on a date night. This is just not in the cards for us. It's okay. We went on one 3 weeks ago. We'll go on one right after. It's not, our marriage is not going to deteriorate in 3 weeks. If so, it was never that strong to begin with. So it's just communication and getting through it. The other things, just for me, the non-negotiables are exercise. Like, I'm going to work out 1 hour a day, like come hell or high water, unless, the last time I didn't work out for an hour in a day was when I had COVID 2 years ago. That was not happening. I barely left the couch. I got in like 200 steps a day, right? For about a week and a half. And so outside of that, though, that's a non-negotiable. Now, it might take on different forms. It might mean that, 30 minutes of that exercise is I'm doing sometimes I'll do a meeting while I'm on the bike, or I'll do a quick stand-up call with somebody on our team that needs help. And I'm like, yeah, if you're going to talk to me today, because of my schedule, I just so you know, I'm going to be lifting weights while we're talking. So you're going to have that's how we're going to get, like, my option is like, don't meet with them at all, or that's how we're going to meet, this day. So which is the better one? So yeah, exercise is just non-negotiable. Things like my morning, my morning time, that first 30 minutes is just non-negotiable. No matter how busy I am, what I have going on, my first 30 minutes of almost every day, except for Sundays, stays exactly the same. And so you just have to have for me, it's just rules. It sounds weird because I'm not a rules person. I'm a creative, and I don't like boundaries, but those boundaries actually allow me to, within those boundaries, exercise maximum creativity.
I love it. And lots of really good nuggets there. Now, Matt, I know we've got a hard stop on this recording, so we have to put the pedal to metal on the next questions. So what is the most important lesson you wish you could give your younger self, and why?
Probably the most important lesson that I could get, like, just thinking back to when I was younger. This is straight from the book. This is straight from the book where I write about, not comparing yourself, to other people. There's an entire section where I talk about, like, embracing your fears. Stephen Pressfield writes that fear is an indicator. It tells us what we have to do, right? The more scared we are of a work or a calling, this is straight from the War of Art, the more sure we can be that we have to do it. And I would just tell myself, like, no, the fear, that voice that you're fearful of is actually telling you what you have to do. And the other thing is, like, in my early years, I spent a lot of time comparing myself to others, not because I was, not because I would look at them and feel bad about myself, because I look at them and aspire to do what they're doing. The problem was, and this is a quote straight from the book, from John Acuff, never compare your beginning to someone else's middle. I was comparing where I was and going, my stuff's not as polished. I have this, my videos don't look as good. You know why my videos don't look as good? Because I'm not a video editor, but I edited the video by myself, because that, 7-8 years ago, that's what I had the budget for. I spent 4 hours editing that video. I did the best that I could. And so-and-so, who has much better videos, newsflash, he has a team of professional editors who spent 16 hours. Not only am I not as good, but I only had 4 and they had 16. So of course his videos look better. Why would I compare my videos, my first 30 YouTube videos? I shot 30 YouTube videos in 30 days. I have never done a video a day since then. Why did I do 30 in 30 days? Because I knew at the end of that month, I'd be really good at YouTube videos. I would nail, if I got into that rhythm, I would nail it. That was the thing. The other quote in the books, the reason we struggle with insecurity is because we compare our behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. That's from a guy named Stephen Furtick. And it's the same kind of concept. Like, we see their highlight reel. Think about it as a parent. Nobody posts on Instagram and says, hey, here's my kid throwing a fit and calling me the worst mother ever. No, they put them on there when they're just so loving. And there's a picture of them with Santa. and they're at they're wearing their Sunday best. That's what we post on Instagram. We don't compare our behind the scenes. The reality is every kid on the face of the earth has said to their parents, I hate you, or you're the worst dad ever. You're the worst mom ever. That is literally every kid ever. So if you compare your kid just because your kid says, I hate you a couple times a year to the perfect picture of everyone else's child, of course, you're going to feel like you're a crappy parent and you're going to think that something's wrong with your kids. So stop doing that. And that would be and that applies in business as well. Just stop comparing yourself to others. Take advantage of your disadvantages. The things that you perceive as disadvantages are typically actually advantages in the marketplace. And that would be the biggest advice I could give to myself. 10. I'd give that my advice to myself every single year, Simon.
It's a really good one. It's the one, like Rachel, my friend, does that to me the whole time. My partner's like, just don't compare. Comparison is really useful, but we do it all the time. There's it's a natural thing, especially in marketing. It's like, what are they doing? What results are they getting? And it's so hard to not try and keep up with the Joneses, we say here in the UK. I love that, Matt. And also, I love the way you talk about stuff. That's why I loved working with you and talking with you. You have this lovely humor. And it's so important for entrepreneurs to keep that humor on the journey. And when we get to come sort of interesting questions now, I think, which is when you're going through these life-changing moments, these pause, stop, reset moments, I found books and movies help. I'm just curious if any book or movie has most helped sort of shift what you're doing in life. You mentioned a few there, great titles earlier, but what's the book that most that's the book that changed me?
It's going to sound really weird. It was connecting the dots between two books that have nothing to do with each other. So again, it's the weird answer, but it's the first thing that comes to mind. And actually, I got to share this. There's a story behind this. So the two books are a book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. There's one whole concept in the whole book. I know people have gotten a lot out of it. I didn't, except for one concept, and that was the concept of upper limiting, that we self-sabotage. We hit a level where we're past our thermostat of comfortability, whether it be finances, relationships. I know, I'll give you one example. I moved 13 times in my first 14 years of life. I then moved another, so by the age of 30, I'd moved about 22 times, a little bit less over the next few years, but I'd never once lived in a single place, Simon, more than 3 years in my entire life.
Wow.
2011, we purchased this home. Guess what happened about 2015? I started getting antsy.
You're like,
I wanted to. I didn't even know why. Why did I want? I started finding faults in our house. Our hot water heater broke. Well, you know what? It was this home was built 20 years ago. It was built in 2001, so 22 years ago now. At that time, the home was 15 years old. Guess how long hot water heaters typically last? 15 years. Is what I found. That's pretty much the standard.
Right?
This hot water heater was basically starting to break down at right about the time it's supposed to start breaking down. No, it's because this home's a piece of crap. I started finding all the little faults. The flooring came up in a little spot. You know what? That's normal. It's called humidity. It was right by the back door where a lot of humidity gets in. It's normal with that type of flooring that they have to reseal it after about 20 years. And we were about 18 years in at that point, when I started. Over the next 4 years, Simon, I found every little fault I could find with this place. I hated everything about it. And I was miserable. And then I realized, oh my gosh, it's because for the first time in my life, I'm setting down roots. I look out on this home. My kids wake up. They look out over this beautiful pond and backyard that half the time we've got 17 different animals in the backyard. We live in a freaking zoo. We have a family of deer that lives at the corner of our property, beautiful trees. Other than the fact that it floods a little bit when we get, some heavy rains every now and again. And, we got this beautiful creek that goes through our property that the kids get to go play in. My kids get to play in a creek. Most kids today, they grow up in an apartment complex or a subdivision where they're lucky if they have a backyard that's got 0.16 acres. My kids have acres and acres to go roam around on. It's nothing. I couldn't have dreamed of this growing up with a single mom. I couldn't have dreamed of something like this. And yet I was finding every fault with this place. I was finding fault with where the light switches were. Still to this day, if I were to really complain, I don't understand why the garbage disposal light switch is where it is compared to the other switch. But hey, so let's just want every day, stupid garbage disposal switch. I was upper limiting. So that's the first book. So then the second book, this is going to sound weird, but it's a book called Extraordinary Golf. And I don't play golf anymore. I haven't played golf in about 7 or 8 years. But I read this book a few years ago, and one of the things that I couldn't even tell you the author's name. I think it's Shoemaker, if I remember correctly, Fred Shoemaker maybe, said there's one basic principle in the culture of golfers, and it is this: there is something wrong with my game, and I must fix it. And he goes on to talk, and the reason I have that quote right in front of me is I just made this connection a week ago. Actually a week and a half ago, Simon, I made the connection between upper limiting and this idea that there has to be something wrong and I have to fix it. And I'll share some examples. And then I was telling my wife about it, and I was like, yeah, it's from this book, Extraordinary Golf. And then we happened to go to a restaurant that had a little bit of a wait, and it was next to a used bookstore. And my daughter is an avid book reader. She reads, a book a day, like a 300-page novel a day. So we go to this used bookstore, and I go over to the sports section just to look around. And there's 2 copies of Extraordinary Golf. And I'm like, holy freaking crap. I'm like, because I lost my book in a flood. I was like, I gotta reread this. There's something wrong. So every time we hit a certain level of, oh my gosh, our finances are amazing. We have 6 months emergency fund in the bank, and we're paying ourselves. What do we need to do? We're paying ourselves more than I know what to do. Let's go buy a company. Let's go. I got to find a way to drain the bank account. I didn't think that's what I was doing, but let's go do this. Let's go do this. Oh, let's start this new thing. Every time that anything would ever go right, I'm like, there has to be something wrong, because here's what I learned. If there's something wrong, then I have a mission. I have a mission that we have, like, okay, when we were $100,000 in debt, 7 years ago, we had our best 6 months ever. Why? Because it was like, boom, first month, 20,000 paid off. Next month, 22 paid off. Next month, 17 paid off. And I'm like, but we're getting to this goal. We're going to get there. And we were saving up for the house. We wanted about $100,000 down payment. And it was like, okay, 6 months, boom, got 15, got 32, got 58. Every month it was like the little thermometer, right, was going, like the fundraising thermometer was going up, up, up. And I'm like, oh man, okay, we got to make $27,000 this month to get to our goal. And what did we do? Last day of the month, we made our $27,000. Just like 15% of our sales from the book launch were in the last 4 hours of a 6-week campaign. Same concept. When there's something to fight for. And so this culture, there has to be something wrong, plus upper limiting, and connecting the dots between those 2 very interesting books that in theory have nothing to do with business, have made the biggest impact on me.
Love that. Really. But I love that, again, this is why I like Matt, because you're really plugged in and you're smart, but that way of thinking is really interesting, and I'm resonating so much with that, because it's like, you need to have the problem to be fixing it. Otherwise, we know people chill out. It's like, yeah, we've made that goal, and the limiting we do to ourselves is so tricky, while at the same time not comparing, right? And Matt's got a bit more time, I think, if I'm very, very lucky, boys and girls and gentlemen. I love it, Matt. No, it's really interesting. And what I really love, though, it's like, yourself really well. And you can own that, because you weren't going out. It sounds crazy, right? You and I have been around launching. Nobody's ever gone, we're going for 1 billion book sales in a straight face.
Yeah.
It's like, if I can sell 20,000 books this year, that'll be amazing. And then somebody else goes, I did 100,000 in 3 days. You're like, no, you didn't. It's like,
first book launch I ever ran was a guy named Jeff Goins, and he hired me, and I came in and he said, I need to tell the publisher how many books we're going to sell. And I said 15,000. He's like, Matt, my last book sold 3,000 copies. I cannot tell them 15,000. I was like, Jeff, you hired me to run this thing. I know the numbers. I know the firepower we have. I know the budget we have. We are going to do 15,000. You either tell them 15,000 or I'm not working with you, because I need you all in on this. I need you believing we're going to hit 15,000. We did 22,000 pre-orders.
Love it. Matt, you weren't military, were you, though, right?
No.
You've very much got a special forces military thing of like, we're winning this fight, let's go. How are we doing it? It's a very interesting mind.
No, and when I say I moved 13 times in 14 years, like, oh, military brat, I'm like, no, single mom, who couldn't, unfortunately, she was always, there was always a new opportunity, and my mom never made more than $38,000 in a year in her life. But if there was a new opportunity that could potentially pay a little bit more, then, she would go there. And then actually she did find the irony was she did find a place where she worked for 6 years. The downside was every 9 months we had to shift back and forth between locations. So between a location in North Carolina and a location in Tennessee. And so, yeah, even then, when she found stability in a career for 6 years, we moved like 7 or 8 times just because that's what that job required. So yeah, otherwise, for the most part growing up, like I said, it was, I'd be somewhere for a year and then we'd leave. I never went to the same school back-to-back years. And first time I went to the same school back-to-back years was in high school.
My it's really funny. I've known you for a while. I'm learning something new and going, interesting. Because you never had that experience having to go through the same bully in year 2 and going through those processes.
Or having the same, the positive side, having the same friends or knowing, like it's, yeah, I mean, it shapes, things like that shape you. And I look at it as positives because I can walk into a room, even though I'm an introvert, I can walk into a room and be like, cool. I mean, they're just people, I'm not one of those people like, I don't know how to make friends because I've never had to. I know how to make friends relatively quickly. And so it's like, yeah, I never had the stability that, like, it's one of those things that the types of things you would never wish on your own children, but you're kind of glad you went through them yourself. They say like something like the average age in which the presidents of the United States lost their dad is like 10 or 12 years younger than the rest of the population. So many presidents lost their dads when they were young children. What does that mean? Like, what does that do for somebody? And how does that shape them? Well, I mean, clearly it worked out. They became president of the United States, the leader of the free world. Would you wish on anybody they would lose their dad when they're 8 years old? No, that's a horrible thing to have. I lost my dad when I was 25 and that was too young. You don't wish that on anybody, but it does shape you usually in positive ways when you go through that kind of adversity.
Yeah, and that intentionality, a lot of what we're here and sharing on these podcasts, people can go, I can get out of this dark night of the soul, these bad times, and get the learnings and go forward. So when you've been through that yourself, what got you through? Obviously, you've got your wife. Has she been a big person that's helped you on this sort of business journey? Like, what's been the thing that's got you through those really challenging times?
The really challenging times. I mean, for me, personally, faith is super important to me. I have a trust that it's all going to work out. How God has it to work out, whatever that may be. I might not like it. I might, in fact, hate every moment of it for 3, 6, 9 months. But I trust that it will. My wife has absolutely been huge. Tara. I've got a note from her on the flip side of my desk that I would grab if it didn't take too long to flip around and grab it. But it just says, hey, I know it feels like it's been tough for a long time. We were going through a really rough stretch. We had gone through a stretch in our business, years ago where we grew too fast. So our expenses were way up and then our revenue dramatically dropped through no fault of our own. We had but fault of our own, it was bad decisions on our part, and then some things happened with the economy, yada, yada. So we had a really rough stretch where we were about $100,000 in debt and we were not bringing in enough money. And it just seemed like there was going to be no end in sight. And she wrote this note that said, I know it feels like it's been like this forever, but we're going to make it through it. And I just remember, like, when I read that note, I went, okay, what is the next right thing? Like, what do I have to do? I was living in this mode where the only 2 ways I could think were 5 years and 5 minutes. Like, what do I need to do today? And what do we need to do over the next 5 years? And I was just like, okay, what do I need to do this month? What do we need to do this month? And I went, all right, let's do this. So we scheduled a couple of small promotions, not something that required this big effort and all these things, but like we scheduled some small promotions and we brought in a little bit extra money. And it was like, at the end of that month, we didn't go further into debt. In fact, we were in the black. And we were able to pay off, like, it was literally like $3,000 of $100,000 debt. And you go, whoopity-doo, right? Like, big deal. Paid off 3%. All right. So the next month, what do we do this month? And we scheduled a few other promotions and I went, okay, we could do this and we could leverage this relationship. And then we were able to bring in like an extra $10,000. Okay, cool. And we put some of that towards the debt. And then next thing over the course of the next it was about, earlier, I think I said 6 months. It was probably more like 9 months to, maybe even upwards of a year. We paid off the debt. We were completely debt free, and we kept those principles that we were doing, that were bringing in the extra $10,000 to $15,000 a month, above and beyond expenses. And now all of a sudden we were paying ourselves well. And now all of a sudden we had a fully funded, we had, $250,000 in the bank to pay for the next 6 months of expenses. And then it was like, okay, now we can do stuff from here. But it was really just like, what do I need to do this week? I think you have to find, or this month, you have to find that middle ground between like long-term thinking and short-term thinking, and just think, okay, you can't think what's my next, I think the next right thing is the wrong way to think. The next one thing is probably not going to make a difference. The next 5 years of things is too far. So like, what are the next 3 or 4 moves you could make that are going to have an impact, and then just execute on them? As simple as that sounds.
I love it, buddy. I know your book is out, and people want to learn more about you and what you do. What's the best way for them to get hold of Matt and your gems of genius, sir?
Gems of genius. I feel like that should be something there. There's like a t-shirt or something there, Simon. So yeah, I mean, the whole premise of the book really just hinges around the fact that, the world needs your message. The world needs your message, Simon. Like, the world needs our messages, whatever we have. There are potentially hundreds of thousands, even millions of people out there who need your message, but we're not going to wait passively. We're not going to wait patiently for it. And so the book is all about, it's for the messengers. The messengers are the ones who are defining the new economy. That's what we're all messengers now. So if you have a message, you have an idea, you have a passion, you have a message for the world, how do we get that out in the marketplace? So we start by clarifying what that message is. We talk about leadership as it pertains to leading a tribe, a following, how to capture attention and convert them into subscribers, how to build a community, how to become a champion for their cause, to become a hero, to our audience. How do we create those raving fans and condition your audience to purchase? How do we condition them to open our emails and buy things from us and things like that? And then ultimately, how do we monetize, and how do we create a lasting business? Because it's one thing to, do one thing, to write a book or to build a product and make some money off of it, but how do we build a lasting business? So that's the whole premise of the book. Again, turn your passions into profits. Like, how do we go from this one side? We got people who are super passionate about what they do, but they don't make any money. And you got people who make a lot of money, like I was in the golf industry, but we're not passionate about what we're doing. Neither one of those is sustainable. So either way, we end up burning out and the world misses out on our message, Simon. And so you can get the book anywhere, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart. If they sell books, we actually just sold some to a little tiny bookstore in Hamilton, Ontario the other day. They bought like 4 or 5 copies. So if they sell books, you can get the book there. But the best place to go is passionsintoprofitsbook.com/PSR. Because Simon, there we've got over $500 in bonuses for your listeners. So that's the best place to get the book, just because, yeah, you can go to Amazon, you can go to Target, whatever, and grab the book. But if you go there, you'll have an opportunity to be able to not only buy the book, but to be able to claim all those free bonuses. So some absolutely awesome stuff there where you can, things like developing your ideal customer avatar and a bunch of other amazing bonuses.
Thank you, buddy. It's a surprise to meet you. And McWilliams.com. But you'll find, once you know Matt, you can find him everywhere. He's one of those people who go, it's Matt again. I've really enjoyed talking to you. We could talk for far longer. This reminder to not compare ourselves, this reminder of not limiting our upper stuff from the big leap from Gay Hendricks, and this thing of getting rid of that there's something wrong that I must fix from Extraordinary Golf. I love those insights, Matt. As ever, it's a gem talking to you, my friend. And thank you for being on the show today. And if you've enjoyed the show, do go to Apple Podcasts, do rate and review, and do take some action. Check out Matt's book. I'm sure there'll be an audiobook coming too, Matt. Is that the case?
It's out. Yeah. We got my favorite narrator too. It was so funny. My publisher, they sent me an email, 3-4 months ago and said, all right, we have the suggested publisher. And I clicked on the, he had like a 5-minute sample, and I clicked on it. I was like, why do I know this voice? So I looked the guy up, and I'm looking through my audiobooks. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've listened to like 10 of his books. So I listened to a lot of like sports biographies and stuff like that. And he had done a book. There's a book that I'd listened to. Kurt Sampson's the author. He had done all of Kurt Sampson's books. So like one on Tiger Woods, one on Ben Hogan. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is like my favorite narrator. And that's who they picked to do the audiobook. So I was really excited about that.
I love it. And as we wrap up, what's the one takeaway you want our listeners to be left with today?
Wow. One takeaway that like, here, sum up your life's work in one sentence. Here's what I'll say, if I could, because I want to tie it back to, everything we've talked about. Yeah. I mean, never compare your beginning to someone else's middle. Never compare your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. Stop comparing yourself to others. It's so cliche, but if we do that, and yes, we can model after others. We can learn from others. We can glean from others. I mean, like those books, I'm not comparing myself to the authors of those books, but I am modeling after them and taking those lessons away. We can do those things without putting ourselves in a comparison game, because we all have a unique background, a unique story, unique circumstances, unique finances, unique whatever. So stop doing it and run your own race.
Once again, I'm Simon Hedley. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pause, Stop, Reset, which is brought to you by the team at simonx.com and published by thesimpleidea.com. So you get maximum value, and to access all the bonuses and gifts, make sure to head to pausestopreset.com, register and explore the portal. And if you're looking for great people, check out onesmartnetwork.com. If you've enjoyed the show, do give us a positive review, subscribe, and share this episode with friends. I can't wait to share our next episode with you. Till then, remember, you can always choose to pause, stop, reset.